Quatro, right?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's live session day. Yay. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us live, awesome. If you're not and you're watching the replay, awesome too. Thanks for watching. But we have Jonny Quatro here, and it's his first time on our show. So I'm excited, as always, to have a new person on the show because it's like exciting to share everybody's music, and for me it's just so much fun. So
Thanks for having me, Kara. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So you want to give us just kind of a rundown a little bit of like where you're from and how you got music?
So originally I'm actually from Rochester, New York, the frozen north, as it were.
Yeah.
And I lived up there all my life until June of last year when I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina. So,
Yeah.
well, my family and friends are freezing in 20-degree temperatures right now.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the 70s and the 80s with the breezes. So
Yeah.
yeah, small town in the outskirts of Rochester. Most of my childhood was in a little place called Hamlin.
Yeah.
I'll spare you the whole like one stoplight in the whole town thing. It wasn't that bad, but I come from a really, really big family. So there were seven. I have seven brothers, so there was 8 boys in total, and yeah, we all lived in a tiny little house for a lot of my childhood. All 8 of us boys shared one bedroom.
Jeez.
Yeah, bunk beds. It was like prison. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I've never been to prison, but it was like the movies, like
right. Oh
The Great
God.
Escape or Hogan's Heroes. But
Yeah.
I think when you're a kid, you don't know any different. You just have a blast anyway. So I didn't know like how much money we had or how big or small a house was supposed to be, or
Yeah.
the idea of having your own room was like a weird concept to me, just because I was used to
No kidding. Yeah.
all of us stacked together, and then one of your bros gets sick, and then everyone's up all night.
I imagine.
Yeah. I was usually a bottom bunk guy, so I can remember like being a little kid, and I'd be falling asleep, and then a loud thud, and whoever was on the top just rolled over in their sleep and fell off and hit the floor. And it was like a mad panic of like everyone. I mean,
Oh my
getting
God.
awakened out of sleep is traumatizing anyway, but with a
Yeah.
loud thud and then your brother screaming is But good times were
Yeah.
had. So yeah, our family was very musical in the fact that we were all very heavily involved in church. In the local church, it was a Baptist church. I know like religion and Christianity and like churches and stuff, I guess get more of a bad rap these days sometimes. But like, if you look at, I'm sure you've interviewed tons of musicians. How many musicians have you talked to that had a church background? I feel like it'd be a fair amount.
I would say 25%, maybe.
Yeah, it's a fair amount because
maybe a little more. Yeah.
Probably because a lot of you grow up singing at least once a week, if not twice a week and more. So you're singing, or you're playing an instrument, or you're in choir. I was in a lot of quartets and stuff. So a lot of musicians I've talked to had a church background. So I think it's just interesting. It's like a common place where people can gather and sing on a regular basis, which is cool. I was also homeschooled, so it's not like I was doing band in school or anything. So I took a little piano, a little guitar, not enough to make me dangerous. And, eventually just settled on singing. And although I still noodle with the other stuff, and I'd like to get better at it. Obviously, that would change my songwriting a bit, probably. But
I know that feeling.
yeah. My older brother Steven was like the most musically gifted out of all of us, and he would sing and write songs, and I like just adored him and like looked up to him so much because his skills were just so great. And so like he was kind of an early mentor of mine as far as musically, and so that was kind of cool to like learn from him. But all of us brothers sang together. If you got all 8 of us in a room, which doesn't happen very often anymore. If you got all 8 of us in a room, we could do some harmony. It's a lot of fun.
Fascinating. That's awesome. That's so cool. And to have so many siblings that actually play too. I mean, that's kind of rare also. I don't think I know a couple of people that were like the youngest of 10 or youngest of 8 or youngest or even the oldest of 7, and a lot of them are just like their own. They just did the music, and the rest kind of did their
Hmm.
own thing. So that's really cool that you all have that gift.
Yeah, my at least one of my older brothers taught trumpet. Um, in like the little mudroom of our
Oh,
house, he had students come over and taught the trumpet, and then
yeah.
it's my brother Daniel. I do have a one brother. He lives in the Tampa area, and he had this natural knack for the trumpet. Like most of my brothers tried to play it except for me, and trying to play the trumpet, it can sound pretty freaking awful.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I know. I
he
tried too.
oh, did you? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not easy. It's
It's
not
so
easy.
naughty. Yeah, I went to flute after that, and I was like, I got it. I got this one. But the trumpet, I just couldn't. My ears could not like do that, like that piercing
Hmm.
together your lips thing. It just wasn't working for me.
Hey,
So
flute's not easy either, but yeah, it's
yeah,
the sheer
I like
amount of
that one easier. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, I mean, I've never played the flute, so I'll take your
For
word for
me,
it.
I'm just saying, like for me, that was easier. Like I figured that one out like pretty quick. But the trumpet, it was all just like I couldn't do it.
So, but yeah, he had a my one brother who lives in Tampa now. He had like a unique tone. Like some people
Mm,
have it. He just has
yeah,
it. So there was like some natural talent in our family, I think.
yeah.
But like I said, my older brother had all the songwriting talent, and then I just kind of never did anything outside of church with it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's interesting because it's coming from the background I come from, like there's a big emphasis on like spiritual music, religious music,
Yeah.
Christian music, which is a wonderful genre. But it was a little bit more maybe frowned upon to venture outside of that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so and again, it's to teach their own. It's just kind of
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I didn't really have a whole lot of exposure to any of the any of that stuff at an early age. And then I remember I was probably 11 or 12, and we were watching this old TV show called The Dick Van Dyke Show. I don't know if you're
I
familiar
love
with it.
that show.
In
Yeah,
fact,
kid.
I think I have the whole series behind
Oh
me on my
my
shelf
gosh,
here.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I was watching that
Yeah.
show, and there was a guest star on there named Vic Damone. He was a singer,
Yeah.
crooner, like from the 50s, 60s era. And he always lived in Sinatra's shadow. But he was the guest star on this episode, and he sang the song called "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World." And I
Yeah.
remember being sitting on the floor of the living room watching it, and it just kind of hit me like, I think I need to sing.
Yeah.
I
Oh my,
think I need to. I think I need to do this. Like it was inspiring.
yeah.
I actually was able to write to him before he passed away, maybe 5 years
Really?
ago. Yeah, I was able to tell him like you're the reason why I got inspired.
How fascinating.
Yeah, and he did
Yeah.
write back, which was great, and wished me luck, which was
What?
wonderful.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it was amazing.
Jeez. When I was younger, it was so I was kind of half raised by my grandparents, and my grandpa was so into all those old movies and old TV shows. So I got to watch them all. And uh, Frank Sinatra was my favorite.
Oh
I
yeah,
got into dancing because I saw Singing in the Rain, and I
oh
was like,
it's
I
wonderful
want to
movie.
do that, you know. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and then I got into more like and still to this day, I really love Frank Sinatra. And his music and all of that. And then I also wanted to be like a backup dancer. Like eventually that turned into one as a young girl in the like early 90s, late 80s for like Janet Jackson. I was like, I want
Mm-hmm.
to be her backup dancer, and I could dance like Frank Sinatra. I thought I was the coolest thing in the
Sure.
planet.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I ended up doing Singing in the Rain when I was a kid in dance classes and stuff. And
Oh,
then
that's awesome.
yeah, and then yeah, so it was kind of cool. Like I understand the love there and that influence for
There's a
sure.
there's a purity to the vintage music.
Yes.
Um,
100%. Yeah.
there's also like just an insane amount of talent involved. And
Oh,
since you said that, I can tell you my number one all time favorite musician, singer, entertainer is Frank Sinatra.
really? Yeah, how
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I
cool.
mean, and the thing is, it's funny when people say they like Frank Sinatra. It's like saying, I like spaghetti. It's like, okay, but like, I need to try your recipe. Like, people
Yeah.
say they like Frank Sinatra because they've heard My Way, New York, New York. But like,
Yes.
people that know the deep cuts and the unreleased stuff, and the fact that he he was a monster. He'd record like 6 albums in a year.
Yeah,
Like
it
I
was
can't imagine.
crazy. Yeah,
In
I
fact,
mean, as okay.
I'll show you something cool since you mentioned it. Um, this is a little treasured possession of mine. This is the complete um, Reprise Records collection of Frank Sinatra's,
Oh
and
my God.
it comes in this little. I found this at an auction once. It's stamped with the limited edition number, but yeah, it
Yeah.
came with everything from
Oh my
his
gosh.
his Reprise
Look at
Records era,
you.
and like a fancy little carrying case, which I thought was so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Oh
so
my
that's
God. That is so cool. If I had ever come across something like that, I would totally do. Like I love all that vintage like
yeah.
stuff that people get or have, and they're just like, oh, I'm over it now. I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
move it on and sell it. I'm like, yeah, give it to me. Like I love all that kind of stuff.
Do you have like a prized possession from that era?
Uh, God, do I? I have.
Do you collect vinyls at all?
Yeah, I was thinking if I think I have a vinyl. I can't remember if I gave it to my mom, but I think I had Frank Sinatra's like one of his vinyls.
Wow.
And then I had later in life, the next one I got was like when it was mint condition, and I was like 7 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, when did it come out? Maybe 85, 82. So I got it. I think I got it when I was 5. Was the vinyl of Michael Jackson, the Thriller,
Ooh, yeah.
and it was like mint,
Mint, yeah.
And so yeah, so then I started collecting vinyl from there. And I think I gave the Frank Sinatra one to my mom because she had like a huger collection when I was younger. And
Yeah.
I was in my 20s and I was like moving around everywhere. And I was like, you keep this while I'm trying to figure
Yes.
it out. And so I'm pretty sure I gave it to her and I don't have it back yet.
It might
But
be time to go raid her place.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. But my grandparents also have a bunch of that stuff too. So I'm kind of excited to dig into that. When I was a kid, they did, but they haven't as they've gotten older. So I'm kind of excited to dig into that and to talk to them about it. I haven't in
Sure.
a really long time. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool to like, I think that era is so amazing. And I have like an original, like, I would say it's an original, as close as it can get to be, of like Marilyn Monroe, and there's
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, like so it's just amazing. That era was just so cool, and my grandparents kept a lot of that stuff, like Elvis Presley and like the original like Elvis Presley album that had come out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it was the
Yeah,
second. Like it's crazy. It's amazing.
that brings up an interesting point though, Kara, because I was thinking about this recently. I don't think we can ever be that cool again because we
Yeah,
all know we all know too much about each
yeah,
other.
for
So like
sure.
everything from the that era, maybe you'll take the 30s to this 70s. I mean, you could go further, but that's one of my favorite eras. Is we knew so little about the artists outside of their art that we could just appreciate and enjoy the art. And then nowadays, every tweet, every sentence is analyzed. And I mean, this interview could get analyzed to death for all we know. And
Yeah,
it's like,
for real.
it's hard to be cool if you know everything about a person. Like,
Yeah.
one of the elements of cool is the unknown. So that's the difficult thing, like being a modern artist. Like, how much do I reveal? Like, especially when I'm writing songs,
Yeah.
sometimes I want to be really naked about it. I want to like
Yeah.
show my soul on the page. And sometimes I'm like, that's too much information. Some like
Yeah.
I need to maintain some mystery. So that's a dance when I'm writing lyrics of like, you know, the second song I released was called And I Found Another, which I wrote in a very, very petty mood.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and
awesome.
one of the lines was like a direct indication of a location of somebody that made me feel that petty way.
Yeah.
And so that was like well, that was a little scary to write. It's like, is this too much info? Like,
Yeah. Wow.
but then like it felt so authentic.
Mhm.
So it's that sort of I know Taylor Swift gets a lot of flack for just writing about her exes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to cast shade on her. It is a very easy tactic to resort to because it's so personal and like it feels so
It's
real.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the very first album I wrote, which I'm currently producing to make.
Oh,
Is
cool.
yeah, is completely about somebody I was in love with, and like the stages of all of that, and like the aftermath and the all of that kind of stuff. So I feel
Hmm.
like, yeah, she gets a lot of flack for it, but I mean, there are millions of songs on love from the
Yeah.
Beatles to now, and and even before that. But like they had a couple, but like, it's from the 50s until now. It has been a whether it's an ex, a current person, or somebody you're in love with, that entire genre of music of just romance,
Hmm.
no matter what end it's on, has so much potential because it is so personal. You can kind of feel how somebody writes it, but like
Hmm.
your own personal words and your own personal experience and all of that can't be said again. That's
Right.
personal to you. You can kind of relate, but like it's personal to you. And so
Yeah,
um,
I mean it's interesting because you look at different genres of music and you're right, like romance is the dominant theme and
yeah,
why not? It is the supreme emotion. But like
yeah.
what's interesting is I think this may be a not be a very logical syllogism, but like if you think about the fact that I think musical theater will always be popular because
Oh,
it's one of the few places you can still go where there's songs that are not about love,
yeah.
because in the
It's
course of a
true.
musical you have songs about you
Yeah,
know whatever, even props that are on the stage. So
yeah.
it's an exciting, people can hear a catchy tune. I was listening to there's a 40s junction on Sirius XM, and
Okay.
it's the 1940s is the most specific genre, the most
Oh,
specific decade of music in human history, in my opinion, is the 1940s,
wow.
because everyone in the world was experiencing a world war.
Okay.
So I'm
Yes.
listening to this radio station that only plays 40s music, and you're hearing songs called like "We're Six Jerks in a Jeep," or "It'll Be a Hot Time in the Town of Berlin When the Yanks Come Marching In." There's songs
Love.
about like the war, and
Yeah.
everyone there were big hits because everyone was experiencing that, and you would hear songs that were maybe sad. "I'll Never Smile Again," a tragic song written by a woman whose husband never came home from the war. You've got funny songs making fun of the opposition, making fun of the Nazis.
Yeah.
It was such a fascinating portion of music. So to bring that full circle, like writing now, like obviously I'm writing about love or happiness or
Mm,
loss. I'm writing about very common emotions, and it's great because it is relatable. But there's a part of my brain that I want to scratch at some point that is like songs that are not about any of that. And I'm still trying to figure out how to reach that itch. It's like the itch in the middle of your back that you can't
yeah.
quite reach. Like,
Yeah.
um, I've
But
got a song.
that's an interesting idea. Like what anybody hasn't sung about before, because I feel like
Sure.
in between, what, the 1800s and now, music has evolved and all of that. So many people have come and gone in music, and you would think that like every thought, emotion
Hmm.
has been touched on, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's
Well,
an interesting
it's
thought to try and tap into something that nobody's wrote about before. Like that's very interesting to me.
Well, yeah, for sure. Because the other tactic would be to try and say the same thing everyone else is saying, but in a brand new way, and that seems impossible. But um, like it takes a bit of courage in songwriting. So, like, I was writing the other night, and I was writing about that emotion you feel where you went on a first date and it went really well, but you had to play it cool. You
Yeah.
couldn't let the other person know that you were like, because you don't want to look maybe
Yeah.
clingy or desperate or like you're love bombing.
Yeah.
So you're playing it cool on the date, but then on the way home, you're like behind the steering wheel, like, whoa, like, wow, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Right.
And um, so I was writing about that emotion, and it was it's a bouncy song, it's a catchy song, but it all sounded so typical to me
Mm.
until I was like I was writing. I was like, on the way home, I'll be blushing, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden it hit me like, I'll be blushing like a tomato. And then I built
Great.
the song around the word tomato,
Yeah.
and this idea of like blushing like a tomato. And when I was first writing, I was like, that's too silly. That's not cool.
Yeah.
But then I thought it doesn't matter because it's a unique way to say I'm I'm
Yeah.
feeling a crush.
Yeah.
It's like I'm blushing like a tomato is a little bit more unique than saying, my heart's fluttering or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
letting myself be a little silly, and that's a small example, but letting myself be a little silly has unlocked a new portion of my head. So writing, I'm writing a lot. I've got this little pad called the lyrics in my head. My first songs were all written on envelopes, which is interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um, but I have to write them down. Even I
Oh,
don't
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
if
use the
you saw the
yeah.
notes in my phone,
Mhm.
just saying, everybody would be like, "Oh yeah, this person's definitely a songwriter."
Right, right. I had that file on my phone, but
Yeah.
always afraid of like, what if I break my phone or it gets deleted off the cloud, whatever the case.
Yeah.
I guess the book could burn, but there's something indelible, and I'll talk about this for a second, if I may. There's something
Yep.
indelible about writing
Yep.
something down with a pen and
100.
paper,
Yeah.
because if you think about how magical the songwriting process is, you take something that doesn't exist and then you you cook it in your brain, and then when you bring it out, it can't unexist ever. It now
Yeah.
exists. It'll live longer than I do.
Yeah.
So writing music is leaving a legacy to some degree. So at the end of the year, when I'm hopefully holding that vinyl, that's something that will live longer than I will. And when I put my
Yeah.
songs on streaming, I pay a special fee to have them exist in perpetuity. On all
Yeah.
platforms, regardless of what happens to me, so that they'll live on. But it
Yeah.
is so weird to think like it's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, and this song doesn't exist. But by 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, this song will never unexist again.
Yeah. That is it. And you know what's interesting is like in all of the interviews that I've ever had, we've never had that conversation. The
Mm,
legacy has come up, but not just the fact that you will never not hear that song again because it does not, once it's out there, it's out there, like
right,
you can't take it away. You can't take away the experience of people hearing it. You can't take away the experience of people maybe downloading it or whatever it is in that case, or owning the album or however they go about purchasing it. But like it's an awesome idea to think that that's how you are remembered, and whether you're small or whether you're Beyonce or whatever,
hmm,
music is what it is. It will be here forever. And I mean, we have everything from the 1940s and all of that, and before that, what's to say we 100 years from now won't have all, well, it hasn't been 100 years, but like, in
sure.
100
No, I hear
years,
you.
so what, that ours won't be there, right? So it's just an awesome kind of thought and trippy thought to think like, if you're making music, it's you're unique in that way. You're somebody that will be around forever because your music will stay around forever.
Right.
And I'm sure technology will move forward in some way. I'm sure they'll find another MP3 type thing that will move on. But, it's crazy to me to like think that that's where, because when you release songs that's so vulnerable, you're like,
Yeah.
my God, I don't know if I should release this. Like my very first song I ever released under my name, I was
Hmm.
like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. It's kind of a sad song.
Right. Right.
But then I finally got coaxed into it, and I finally produced it, and I finally did it. And I was like, man, like everybody really felt something. And then the first time I heard it live, it was like, it
Hmm.
hit me like, man, this really is crazy.
It's trippy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so because I don't sing my own songs, but I let other people do it that are better than me. But like it's amazing to just be able to think about that concept and think
Yeah.
this is where my legacy, though I don't have any kids, like personally to me, I don't have any kids, like
Hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. So for me, that's where my legacy will stand, is with element,
Sure.
and also with making music.
Well, and it's also exciting to realize that like nobody has a monopoly on music. No one has a monopoly on
100.
those.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you sit
Yeah.
down at a piano, A B C D E F G, like no one owns those. So
Yeah.
if you said earlier, like, well, if you're smaller, if you become like Beyonce, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Other than on a monetary level, it matters. But
Right. Right. But
on a
I'm
creation level,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
and I understood, but it's so interesting to think like everybody has the same amount of power over
Yeah.
those. Not
Yeah.
everyone's as good at putting them together, but they
Yeah.
belong to us all.
Yeah. It's crazy. And there isn't there's millions of melodies that have not been brought to light yet, billions.
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
it's crazy to think that like music can can exist for so long and not have the same thing.
Right.
Obviously there's
Oh,
people.
listen, Kara, that's a huge fear of mine. And I'm sure you felt this. Like when you write a song, there's always this, did I hear this somewhere?
Right.
Like, especially if it's catchy. Like if I'm
Yeah.
listening to like the other night, I wrote this song and it was already stuck in my head within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I sure I didn't hear this somewhere? So I called several people and sang it to them. And they're like,
Yeah.
no, that's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
like, thanks. I'm paranoid that this is
Yeah.
something I stole.
Yeah. Yeah. I do that too. I'm so anxious about that. Like it's definitely something I'm like, okay, did I get this stuck in my head because I've heard it, or is this actually something that I come up with? And
Right.
so I do the same thing. I'm like, hey, there's like 4 people I'll go to. And I'm like, hey, like, have I heard this before?
Right,
Or
right, right.
you?
Because sometimes you'll hear like something in this because like when it comes to instrumentals, I'm always collaborating with people to work on the instrumental portion because I don't directly play the instruments. But I'll write the tune and the lyrics and then collaborate with someone on the instrumentalizing of it.
Right.
So it's so interesting to I'm
I'm
sorry, I
so
know.
sick. You can keep talking.
Are you sure everything's good? Yeah. No, I feel you. I've had a sore
I just have
throat.
a cough attack at the moment, so hold on just a sec.
Sure, sure. Since she's gone, I can tell you folks, I'm being held captive. Please send the police. I'm in a basement somewhere. I feel like it's somewhere in Arizona. Oh, hi.
I,
I'm just kidding. I'll write a song about
uh,
that. No.
I
But
guess
yeah,
I
like
come clean with everybody and tell them that I'm not feeling up to 100%.
I'm sorry.
And so I did this anyway because I was really excited. But it's killing me. It was gonna get me.
The flu and the cough and everything is going around. I've had a sore
Oh,
throat all week, which is why I'm gonna have to play one of my songs rather than sing it live. I know this is the live sessions, but maybe next
yeah,
time.
it's okay.
But yeah, so it's just to finish up the sort of the lyrical thought. It's exciting to like. I have a very like I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I've had some people say like, I think you have ADHD or something. So I have a lot of I can be very hyper and have a lot of trouble focusing on things, but I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. I've never been diagnosed, nothing like that. All I know is when I do force myself, everyone's different songwriting wise. I have to sit down and force myself and go like, this is songwriting time. So for the next hour, distractions are gone and you're just going to write. And when I point my brain in the direction of the page, it flows. Like I don't want to say it's easy, but it flows quickly. It's like a burst of energy, which is really exciting. And then sometimes I'll write verse one, I'll write the chorus. Usually the chorus comes first, but I'll write verse one, chorus, maybe I'll write the bridge. And then I feel my brain running out of energy, running out of steam. And I'll call my brother or I'll call a friend of mine. I'll say, like, hey, tell me to keep going. Tell me not
Yeah.
to stop. And they'll be like, keep going. I'm like, all right, great, hang up. And then I'll write verse two and finish. And then I don't usually change them. I rarely go back and unwrite or rewrite. I can't bear it. I can't. It was in that moment that I pointed my brain at the page. I can't. Once it's done, it's like, now it'll take on new light in the studio, and we can talk about that for a minute, unless you had to wrap it up. But
It's okay. I'm just gonna mute when I cough. It's okay.
okay, Kara, I'm sorry your throat's not feeling well.
It's all good.
The studio, so the song is completed when I close that book, but in the studio it does take on new light. My producer Noah McGrath down here, he's a genius producer and has worked with a lot of really successful people, and I've worked with multiple producers, and the credit list is astounding. You know, Rihanna and Pop Smoke, and the last time I was in the studio, it was right after Stephen Colbert was recording an audiobook and stuff. And
What?
it's a very he's this Noah McGrath, great producer down here, so talented. And when we get into the studio, I'll give him a completed song and I'll get in the booth and sing. Usually takes me an hour, 2 hours total to get a 3-minute song sung, and then the production begins. But we call it the sauce. We're always searching for the sauce. So once the bass vocals are down, it's like, how can we bring this song to another level? And it's so exciting to, like, my most recent single came out last Saturday, and called Love Me Just a Little Bit. Check it out. And
great song.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that song started off very spare and very bare bones. And then the sauce that we came up with was the harmonies. I just harmonized over my own voice, and we built a lot of different twists and turns in there. And so it's so exciting to see, like, how it takes new life.
Are you?
Oh yes, yeah, always.
Wow, that's cool. I love harmonies. Like, that's like my favorite thing in songs. I just love a good, like, pure harmony. Like, the perfect harmonies is like, and I really
it itches your brain, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, and I think because my favorite band, that's like where they started, is just harmonizing with each other, and their entire albums are just basically harmonies. And then if you go to their shows, it's all harmonies with them, and they'll have just
what band is that?
Acapella. Hanson.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So they are
Hanson's
just
wonderful at harmony.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of something, and I love, like, pentatonics and that kind of like, you know, the acapella thing. So when just the harmonies are just my, like, sweet, that's my sweet sauce. Like, I'm like, yeah, you got that, and I'm sold, you know.
Oh yeah, man. No, I love it. And it is fun to harmonize over your own voice. And, like,
I bet. Yeah.
Saturday I just finished a song called Guess I'll Never Know. That's song number 7 for the album, is now completed and mastered. And that one has some crazy high falsetto harmonies that I really had to stretch for, which is a lot of fun. So for me, I'm really writing wherever my brain points me. So it's so funny to watch. I think that's common for young artists, where you're just sort of flailing and learning to swim and, like, finding your voice. So my genres are all over the place. There's been a lot of dance pop. There's been some rap. There's been some ballads. There's been all kinds of genres just tumbling together, and I'm not even mad at it. I'm just letting it happen.
Yeah.
You know. So the plan this year is I'm releasing one single per month.
Good idea.
Yeah, last Saturday of every month is a brand new single, all original, written by me. And at the end of the year, I'll take those 12 tracks, I'll compile them together, and then I'll throw on like 3 or 4 bonus tracks. So and make an album. So everyone that's followed song by song will have new stuff to listen to. And then people that are first coming aboard will have this nice big, 14, 15 song album to really sink their teeth into. And, if all goes well, I'll just keep going and doing a song a month. I think in the modern era, people are less likely to sit down with a full album than they used to be. So
unfortunately, yeah. Oh my God.
I know, but I know you feel this, like a pet peeve of mine. Like, my favorite artists, they release an album once every few years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would almost rather, like, I love Switchfoot, for example. They're just a fantastic band. And, like, I met John Foreman a couple months ago, and I actually asked him for songwriting advice. John Foreman gave me the best songwriting advice that I've ever heard. He said, write about what scares you, because you'll never run out of material.
Wow.
And I was like, dang,
What?
that is very deep. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So, but
mean,
that was a cool experience. We sat on a park bench. There was like 20 people after a show they did. They did a Switchfoot did a show, and then he stuck around. And I met him outside, and we sat on a park bench and sang songs. And that was amazing. So,
what an
I,
amazing.
I, I I need to collaborate with him. That's the goal. I need to get in touch with him and
Heck
be like,
yeah,
let's
man. Be like,
hop
I
on the album.
sat on the bench and sang with you. Any chance you want to sing a song with me?
Yeah, we're putting that out. We're putting that out in the air. John Foreman,
Yeah, let's go.
collaborate with me.
Come on, universe.
Yeah, let's go. So, but like I hear bands. I'm like, I would almost rather you put out one new song a month.
Hmm.
Now it stinks because then you'd hear the song, you'd want more, but you're supposed to leave the audience wanting more. So I'd
I
almost rather have that than like waiting years in between album. Like my favorite
oh my god, I know.
musician right now is John Mayer, and John Mayer again puts out
Oh,
an album every few months,
yeah.
few years. I wish every few years, and so
God,
it's
if we
like,
did, that would be.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Talk about.
that's my goal, is to give people a lot to listen to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think that idea came from kind of the original thought behind it that I know of from doing all these interviews is, 2020 kind of solidified that like you couldn't go in a studio and all these other things until it was okay. And so people just started doing singles to
Right.
keep themselves relevant because they couldn't perform. And so I think it's a great idea, but I also am from the 90s, and I think having that tangible album with like everybody's music on it and being able to have it on your phone or have it be in your car or whatever is still just nostalgic for me personally, and I still love it. Like I still like the whole album together, and I'll get like all the singles and I'll still get the album. Like I'm a neurotic about all of that stuff, but I love everything. But like because sometimes you're just like, I just want to listen to this song today and I don't feel like the whole album, where you couldn't do that before,
Sure.
So
well, the thing with like the streaming model is, and it's got its pros and cons. The thing with the streaming model, though, two things: one, it makes people think that music is free. Two,
no,
I mean, like the music making process is so expensive. I'm sure you know that. But two,
yes,
the streaming model shows you a mirror image of you. You listen to a song and it goes, oh, you like that, you like this, and so essentially it builds a playlist of you and what you like, and a lot of it doesn't really challenge you that much. Whereas if you got an album where the artist was able to sort of have 10 to 12 songs to really stretch their wings and show you a completed art piece, some of those songs were challenging. Some of those songs weren't quite radio ready, or like that 3-minute pop song. Like I feel like people stretched a little bit more before the sort of the playlist era. Although, I mean, again, there's access to so much now, so that's the pro. There's access.
But I also think it's there's something to also honoring the artist in them getting to the end of that, all of that work, and then putting it out. Yes, each song is great to have, and it gives you that like, oh, they're going to put out another one and they're going to put out another one, and to know that they're going to put one out every month, like say for you. And another musician I know, a friend of mine, he has done one every month. Camden West, he does it every month too. I think it's every month now, and it seems more often than that, but it's probably every month. And it's like, that's fantastic. There's always like new music coming, but I also like the idea of hearing what the intention was for that album. Maybe I know like Tracy Lane, she had 5 songs on her EP, and it was this like whole story in one. And you had to listen to it. Yeah. And you had to listen to that order in order to understand the story, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a lost thing. The concept
It
album,
is.
Frank Sinatra ironically invented. But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'm excited. So for me, like I didn't write for the longest time, and maybe that's for another conversation to go into at a time when we're both feeling a little bit better. But like I didn't. I was afraid to write for a long time, and again, that's for another time.
Me too.
But the thing is, like I had to realize, like anything worth doing is worth doing badly, right? It's you
Yeah.
gotta be willing to suck at things to get
Yeah.
better. Like no one's good at things right off the bat, really, truly. And your year one electrician is can't be as good as your year 20 electrician,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he has to go through the 20 years of doing it,
Yeah.
and it's just how it works. You don't say, well, gee willikers, I'm not as good as I can't do what that 20-year electrician can do. I guess I'll just never do it. It's like you have to suck at first. So for
Yeah.
me, like I
Yeah.
was sitting down listening to my songs. I'm like, man, I feel like there's no rhyme or reason to the vibes or the genre. And I was like, that's okay. No one really knows me yet. I can do whatever I want and experiment and play and fall on my face. It's funny. I'll go back to my first single, Wonder, which is a great song, but I can already hear things that I'm not a fan of, and that's just your self-criticism as an artist. But like, I won't change it because I get to hear the growth to the next song
That,
and the next song and the next, and
but
so
so
it's
does everybody else,
yeah,
So
yeah,
and that's the thing is like, whether you're big or not, it doesn't, I think Taylor Swift and now Beyonce have made a very good and very clear that no matter what genre you start in or what genre you're doing, you can always change. It doesn't matter, you know,
sure,
and you can put out whatever you want because who says you have to stay in whatever it is that you're doing,
sure,
That's the beauty of music. Like you can do whatever the hell you want. And I think
yeah. It's a blank canvas, really.
it is. And it's this idea of like only staying in one, unless you're like a rapper or something, then you might have a problem,
I
like
listen. I feel bad for rappers
I
because
do, yeah, they're kind of pigeonholed.
well, the issue with rappers is you can't not be cool. It's required
Mhm.
of you to always be cool. So you don't really see rappers walking around like if the paparazzi catches them
Yeah.
or they're in an interview. They're never like, "Hi guys." They always have to be like
Yeah.
they always have to have this persona, and I guess
Yeah.
that's part of the charm. Now, I've written some mild, I shouldn't say mild rap, but a little bit of rap for this album, and
Yeah. That's
it's not very cool. It's much more playful,
yeah.
but it was a fun exercise to do, and it is difficult. I do give props, but I feel bad because it's like that element of fun and that element to like you're right. They get pigeonholed. There's not as
Yeah.
much, But it's interesting. Is it T Pain that started singing at
Yeah.
like, and now people are like,
Yeah.
oh wow, he actually has a voice
He
like
so that happened on the Masked
the
Singer,
Masked Singer. Yeah,
and
yeah,
people were like, "Whoa, that bro can sing!" Like,
yeah.
and that's the thing is that I think is really where it's so can Eminem. I mean, Eminem can sing too. He just chose not to. It
He's
only
just a really
like
his lyricism skills are
yeah,
on another plane. Yeah,
yeah, but like, and that's the thing, and there's some like Ed Sheeran, he did a whole rap song at the
yeah,
end of the album, so like,
yeah.
or there's some in between some of his songs. So I feel like, people are more apt to be more uh to kind of bring more to their songs to make it more diverse in the way that they feel they can
Right.
do or want to experiment with, you
Oh,
know
sure. There's
and
every once in a while I'll hear a song where I'm like, "Oh, I wish I wrote that." And
mm,
I'm sure you can relate. Um,
there's
but
so
like,
many.
yeah, on the note of like experimentation, I think it was Coldplay's most recent album, Musical Spheres. The last song was called
Yeah,
Coloratura, and it's like a 10-minute sonic trip
yeah,
through the galaxies. And
yeah,
I'm like, take me on a journey, man. I mean, again, I write pop music, so I know the structure of a 3-minute song. I know verse, chorus,
yeah.
verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And that's fun. It's catchy, but like, I don't mind. I got time sometimes to just go on a journey. So I
Oh,
love watching artists stretch like that.
yeah.
Reliant K did a song called Deathbed years ago where they started from a kid to death in 12 minutes. And it was such a, I mean, and because it was 12 minutes, they had upbeat parts for the good parts of his life and sad cello for when he got sick. It was like watching the opening 10 minutes of
Mhm.
Up.
Yeah. God,
It's
yeah.
like, which speaking of which, I don't know if
I
you can see it.
noticed that actually. Yeah.
There's a Lego version of the Up House on my shelf
That is
right now.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and that's the, that's where me mostly, I stick to like in that regard, I like classic rock where there's just this
Mhm.
like
I
like
think it's
Hotel
brutal.
California or something
Yeah.
like that, where or Led Zeppelin, and with Stairway to Heaven in the beginning or whatever, where there's this story with just the guitar, because I
Hmm.
love the guitar. And
Sure.
so for me, that's kind of where I'll just sit for forever long and stay there and just
Yeah.
do, and just listen to it until the end of time. Or if they have a really good solo and it's just like and it's all the way,
Sure.
I'm like, I'm there until it ends.
Oh yeah. I was in early on. My parents instilled in me a love of classical music,
Mm,
and my
yeah.
dad would take us to the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra. Shout
Oh,
out them; they're fantastic.
yeah.
And
Wow.
when I was a kid, if there was a concert I wanted to go to, that because like I took to it like duck to water, as they say. So for me, if I wanted to go to a concert, I would take my little shovel and I would go up in the winter, and I go up and down the street and shovel enough driveways to earn the price of a ticket.
That's
And
awesome.
then
That's
dad
awesome.
would take me to a show. So it was like I'd sit there, and I went so much that people ended up knowing me by name, like the orchestra members. It
Aw.
was like so, but like there, I mentioned that because there's Gustav Holst wrote a piece called "The Planets," and each movement is named after a planet, and
Yeah.
each one has its own sound and design. And
Wow.
Jupiter, I highly recommend Jupiter by Gustav Holst from The Planets. It takes you on such a journey that I remember I'd sit there as a young person and just cry. And there's no lyrics, nothing. It's just you're on this journey, this sonic journey, and
Wow.
it takes time. But
Yeah.
that's why the emotion is earned, because it takes time. So it's funny. The I ended up getting to know some of the orchestra members, and I still have the number of the principal pops conductor. He's a great guy, Jeff Tyzek. He was a former jazz star, and he um he gave me great advice on my voice and stuff. But yeah, I'll still, I still long to go. Next time I'm in town, I'll absolutely be there. I love going back and visiting that orchestra.
Yeah.
They're just phenomenal. I love that
I
stuff.
love seeing orchestras too. Hanson did
Hmm.
a entire album called the String Theory, and they took all
Oh
of their
no
songs
way.
and put them. They had an orchestra with them, all of them, and
That's
it's
amazing.
one of the greatest concerts I've seen, and just also one of the best albums too. They just took everything and made it into this like beautiful string. And I love I'm a real big fan of the violin, and so I mostly kind of uh, gravitate to anything that has like a really close violin or piano.
Like a string sound, yeah.
Yeah, like a string sound or the piano, either one.
Yeah.
Um, I just love music all the way around. But
I'm
there's
gonna listen to
that
that Hanson album,
gravitate
man. That
to.
sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I
It's also
like when
hot.
at the end of some of their shows, they'll go away from the mic, and then they'll sing that Bee Gees song, Nobody
Yeah,
Gets Too Much Heaven No More,
yeah.
and three-part harmony with no microphones. And
Oh,
it's deathly quiet.
uh,
I've seen them do it, and
yeah.
it's, yeah.
They are fantastic a cappella. Like they have nailed that. That's
Yeah.
like their bread and butter. They can go. There's like they did a TikTok or Instagram or something the other day, and it was with um a band that they had wanted to sing with for a while, and I am forgetting what the name of it is. But there it's just the guy with the guitar, and it's not even plugged in or anything. He's just like
Hmm.
playing, but all you hear is their harmonies of them.
Mm.
And I was like, God damn, that's so great. Like
Well, I
it's
mean, good
oh,
harmonies, man. You get goosebumps, man.
it
It's
really
fantastic.
is, and it's so fascinating to like hear a song just stripped all the way down with any of anything else, and the emotion coming through the voice rather than all of the production.
Mhm.
And there's just something about that, and I think it goes. The same goes with like music and instruments and things. If you do it right, and there's this big emotion, like people can feel it if you do it right,
Oh, and
and
listen, I'll listen to pretty much anything live. You know what I mean?
oh,
Like
me too.
if you're out and about, if someone's on the street corner with a
Yeah.
guitar or a saxophone or something, or you're walking through an area where there's a lot of little bar bands or something, like there's something about that moment. Like,
Yeah.
again, I love opera, but I don't sit down and,
Mhm.
I mean, I have a big record collection of opera records, but it's not often that I sit down and listen to it.
Yeah.
But anytime I've seen an opera performer live, it's like I get
Yeah.
tunnel vision and just zone into this other world because that person becomes an instrument. And
It's,
people will be like, "Oh, opera's just a bunch of screaming and hollering." It's like you got to see it live. It's
yeah.
a trip, man.
I've
You
seen one live in Seattle,
know,
and it was pretty crazy. I was like,
it
wow,
takes you
that's not what
somewhere.
I
Yeah,
thought it was, you know?
yeah. Well,
Um,
people don't realize like opera is it's not it's like a play. You know,
it
like it's
is
a
100.
story. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I love musicals too, man.
sure,
I would go to all of them because I just think that
sure.
it's so much fun, and there's something to being able to act behind the emotion of what
Hmm.
you're singing, rather than
Yeah,
just being on a microphone and singing like you or I would do. Like and of course there's emotion there, but there's something to be able to like have other people and do this like grandioso like
sure. It's a
thing, you know?
performance.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I originally wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, like growing up. That was my original
yeah.
passion, was to be
Wow.
an actor. But I think like coming around to, you become an adult and stuff and all that, and I realized like the thing about, and again, I'm not knocking actors and everything, and
Yeah.
given the right opportunity, I could see myself doing something like that. But there's an element of it where you're a vessel for someone else, right? You're a vessel for the
100%. Yeah.
director and the script writer and everything. And for
Yeah.
me, like there's I remember when I was in my teens and trying to break into it, like there was a moral element where it's like I'm signing myself away to say or do whatever this other person who doesn't maybe share my outlook on life or beliefs or morals or whatever the case may be, I'm signing myself over to do their bidding, which
Yeah.
feels a little scary. And
Yeah.
we're seeing things now like with that HBO documentary that just came out.
Yeah.
Like you're signing yourself over to people that might not necessarily have your best
Yeah.
interests at heart either. So being a musician where you write your own stuff is exciting because it's like if it sucks, there's only one person I can blame, and he's looking at me in the mirror. And if it's
Yeah.
great, I get to high five the same guy, So
Yeah.
it's like a fun thing.
It is. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about being an independent artist is like you have that option,
Hmm.
whereas if you're there's nothing bad. I don't knock the people that been with labels. I have a couple friends that are on labels, but
Oh, cool.
also you know there's this thing about also being able to have a say for what you're doing, and that's
Hmm.
where I think Macklemore and um Hanson and all these other artists that have been able to come out with their own. I think even Eminem eventually, were able to come out with their own like production company or their own
Yeah.
entertainment company or record company or whatever, and do it themselves and
Right.
make it so that they have control of it and nobody else does. And I think that's where it sets independent artists aside apart
There's a
from every.
Yes, there's a level of freedom because
Yeah.
it's like labels will hold music hostage if you didn't make a viral
Yes.
TikTok with it, or they'll say, like, famously, John Mayer's album Continuum, which is not a bad song on that album. That's amazing. He brought it to Columbia. They were his label, and he showed it to them. They said, "There's no hits." And this is the album that had "Waiting on the World to Change" and
Yeah.
"Gravity" and everything.
Oh my god.
Slow dancing in a burning
Yeah.
room, no hits. And so, like, you're taking an artistic piece and you're showing it to a suit, and it's just
Who
not. There's a
probably doesn't
disconnect.
play, who
Yeah,
probably doesn't play,
exactly.
and who
Well, he went to
honestly,
Harvard or something for
yeah,
business, and good for him. But
yeah. I
the
mean, to each
disconnect.
their own, but like you're also not. It's the same with like, I worked in hotels for ever, and it was the same with that. Like you're not in the heart of it.
Hmm.
You're astute. You don't understand where we are and why we're talking about this or why we're
Right,
going.
right.
Right? Same thing with him going to a suit and saying, "Hey, this is the music I want to play." And they're like, "Nah, none of that's gonna work."
Yeah,
You're like,
it's like
"How
you
do you
didn't.
know that?" Like
Well,
you know?
it's funny, like being a young artist and stuff, and you're still close enough to the ground where like a lot you're getting a lot of feedback from people. People are when you send someone a song in your early art era, people assume you want advice for some reason.
Oh my god, I know.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because you go like you spend hours crafting this idea and then hours writing it down and then completing it and you're pacing and sweating and crying and
Yeah.
whatever and you finish it and then you take it to a studio and you spend exorbitant amounts of money bringing it to life and then when it finally comes to life you master it, you put your stamp of approval and completion, you send it to the publishers, it's out in the world, it's done, it's a finished art piece that's not going to change, and then you send it to a friend and they're like, why don't you
Mhm.
try this? I liked it better when you that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no,
Oh,
this is done. It's done. Like,
yeah. Oh my God. I
like
know
you don't
that
get a say
feeling.
in this. I
Yeah.
remember my first single, I sent it to a friend of mine, and she said, um, she's like, I thought I correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you have a pretty good voice. Like, why didn't you write a song that shows it off? I was like, I
What?
don't know how you expected me to take that, but like that's an insane thing to say to somebody that
Oh,
showed you a completed
yeah.
art piece, you know.
Oh my God. Oh my
Which
God.
is it's okay. Like it's people have their opinions, but like I'm still close enough to the ground that I'll work and sweat on something and then put it out, and then the comment is like, you know, why don't you cut your hair or something like so random. It's like,
Yeah.
guys, there's a labor of love here, you know,
Yeah.
that could be, you know, but
Keep past the
it's yeah.
superficial. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
Oh my God.
I love, and the thing is, I love, you know, everyone should be able to have their own opinion. Like, I don't mind if people don't like my music because it isn't for
Well, yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like at least I like when I hear an artist now, like I at least try and recognize. Like I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and this woman came up and she was singing an original song she wrote, and her voice was not very good objectively, and she was very pitchy and out of key. And she even said in the caption, like, "I can't sing, but I love to write.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?" And the comments were just roasting her brutally, right? And a lot of them were funny comments or whatever. That's what the medium is for. But um, I wrote a comment just said like, "Hey, listen, just keep going. Like you will be so much better in a year if you just keep on doing this. Like don't stop because the people were negative. Like I'm proud of you for putting this out there.
Yeah.
For being willing to fall in front of people, to stumble a little bit and skin your knee in front of an audience,
Yeah.
you know, to get better and better and better. So it's like I becoming an artist makes you appreciate the struggle and the journey that is art. And it's like I don't know. Now I look at I'm more hesitant to criticize than I used to be honest. You
Yeah.
know,
I
so
think I am too. In
I'll
some
criticize
regard.
successful people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we hold
Yeah.
them to a
I
higher
mean,
standard.
well,
Someone
I mean,
told me
for me,
something
it's
powerful. Oh,
harder.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For me, it's harder because, like, being on a show, it's if it's the first time I've heard, I'm pretty good about going and listening to the person before I have them on the show, so I know like what
Hmm.
I'm getting into.
Sure.
But but also, sometimes I'm like, oh man, like
Yeah.
how am I gonna just sit here and be like, you're
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
No, I
And
know.
yeah,
We're allowed to have opinions. Like, believe
yeah,
me,
yeah.
I've heard music and thought like, wow, man, that sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. So, I mean, for me, like
Me
the
too.
nice thing, this sounds vain. I don't mean it to. Like, I know that I don't suck, which is nice. It's like a nice thing to know.
Yeah.
Because I have a musical ear and I've written and I've worked with good people. And when I ask I ask for feedback only from people that are you know,
Hmm.
better than me or more experienced than me. So if some person that doesn't do music or make music says, I think you ought to this, I'm like, oh, thanks. But I'm not taking that into
Yeah.
consideration.
Right.
But if a producer who's got all this experience and wisdom says, like my producer Noah, he gives me a lot of space as an artist, but sometimes I'll be saying something and he'll be like, can I just be real with you? And I'll be like, yes. And
Yeah.
he'll say, I think you ought to do this. I'm like, I'm going to give you some weight, your opinion some weight because you know what you're talking about. So
Hmm.
it's, you know, I'll take advice and feedback from those who are better than me, and then I'll keep climbing up to that
Yeah.
level. So, I try not to give advice anymore when an artist, because I know younger and newer artists who will be like, "Hey, what do you think of my song?" And it's like, I just applaud the fact that they made it.
Yeah.
If they're like, give me specific stuff, like if they really press, I'll be like, okay, here's what I would try. But it's so delicate in the beginning. It's so easy to
Yeah.
step on a dream without realizing it. And I just won't, I don't want to do that, man. I don't want to be
Yeah.
a part of that. Like I get comments all the time, people saying like, delete everything, quit now, stop now,
Oh
you
my.
suck. It's a sign of success. If I'm getting haters, it's a sign of success. But like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, then I'll click on their profile, like the people saying quit, stop what you're doing. None of them are musicians. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well then,
Yeah.
why would I listen to you? Like
Why?
let's
Yeah.
say if Michael Bublé commented on one of my videos and said,
No.
stop everything, you suck. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I would think about that for a while. I'd still do music, but I would be like, oh, but like, like James Arthur liked one of my reels the other day and I was like, right on,
What?
like,
That's
so that's
amazing.
cool. So it's just, you can't get, I mean, I'm a very sensitive person, but you can't get offended. You can't get stuck in your own head. And, I've had people very close to me that I love very dearly be very critical, and that hurt
Mm,
or stung or maybe made me stop writing for a minute. And I had to realize, like, listen, this person isn't a musician and they have their opinion that they're entitled to, but you have your life, you have your 24 hours that you have to live. You can't live anybody else's. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Like you're not gonna stop because some non-musician said they didn't like what you do. Like
yeah.
it doesn't make any
God,
sense.
that took me years to learn, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it was I would listen to everybody around me and the
Hmm.
fact that like oh yes, you're doing a good job or you're not, or you write great but you sing like crap, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, which I don't think I have a great voice, but that's my own thing. But like I
Well,
also
I haven't heard it, Kara, but I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. I've heard
I,
a lot of people, and
yeah, I mean,
Bob
most
Dylan doesn't have a great voice, but his music and songwriting is
oh, he's a
top tier.
genius. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Um
one thing I'll say on that note is like, if someone's criticizing you, I will say, all right, what's your alternative? If you can come up with something better than what I got, I'll listen. And
yeah.
their alternative is always quit, which is not better than what I got. So for me, it's like, if a hater's like, oh, you suck and you should delete
Yeah,
everything, right? And I'm like, all right, what should I do?
what
You
do
should
you got?
delete and stop singing. Oh, that's a way worse option than singing and creating. So
Yeah.
spy. But
Yeah.
if someone's like, hey, you should
Great advice.
stop releasing songs once a month and go to a bi-weekly model and it shows me numbers, I'd be like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I'll hear what you have to say. Let me listen.
I'll
So
entertain. Yeah.
if somebody's solution to their perceived problem in your life is quit,
Yeah.
you gotta toss that opinion in the trash, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I've with this show, I've had that a few times over,
Oh, I
and
imagine, yeah,
well,
people can be brutal.
you suck, or this is terrible, or your questions aren't good enough, or everything is just so modeled and blah blah blah, whatever they want to say,
Hmm.
and or
But
you
what's
don't.
their alternative?
I'm like, okay, but it's free. I'm doing it by myself, and
And
I
do
do
you
it
enjoy
every week,
it?
and I love it, and I get
There
to
you
meet.
go.
I've gotten what 500 under my belt now since
Yeah.
2019. Like, are you doing it? No. Okay, so what do you
Well,
have?
and
You
listen,
know?
Kara, I'll guarantee you that this interview is number 500, whatever, is better than interview number 1 and 2. Like
Oh, yeah,
you've gained skill at
yeah,
an exponential rate just from doing something
yeah,
a bunch of times in a row. So yeah,
yeah.
keep up the good work. Don't stop. I mean, I've enjoyed the interview. I think you do a fantastic
Thank you.
job asking questions and facilitating,
Yeah, that was more in the beginning.
conversation. And you obviously, like, I'd lose the coughing. That's an odd bit to use,
Yeah.
but other than that, you know. Um, but yeah, I'd like to thank you for the interview. I've enjoyed it, and it's been a lot of
Yeah,
fun. I
thank
feel
you.
like we could go on for a while, but would you like to hear a song?
I think I would love to, honestly, and I think everybody
Okay.
would too. So
All right.
yes.
So I apologize that I'm not able to sing this live. Again, my throat is in disarray. Just I've had the flu and such,
Yeah.
for this weekend, and so I don't want to. The hope is to get in the studio again Saturday, and I was in the studio last Saturday, so I'm trying to preserve the voice. So
Yeah.
I will play a song on the Bluetooth speaker. the quality obviously won't be as good, obviously, as hearing it in real life, but I am going to give everyone a treat, and I'm going to play an unreleased song.
Hey, that's
Because
awesome.
if you want to hear my released music, it's on Spotify, Apple Music,
Yeah.
every streaming service available. It is out. I've got 3 songs out so far. Like I said, 1 per month is coming. I may my Instagram is Jonny Quatro Music. I may start letting the fans vote on which song I release next based off the vibe and stuff.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, if we
Yeah.
could crowdsource this to some degree, and
Yeah.
so yeah, if you're watching this, give me a follow at Jonny Quatro Music. I welcome your welcome to my journey. It's
Yeah.
been so much fun so far. So this
Yeah.
song is called Firefighting, and um, I guess I could play it and then we can talk about it, or
Yeah. Sure.
would you
I
rather
mean,
I preface it?
a lot of people talk about it first and then they play, but if you want to go that route, that's okay too. I don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, it's just this idea. This song wrote itself to some degree, although that's a terrible cliche. But I was writing about this idea of it was similar to the other song that ended up. Wow, I'm just realizing this now in real time. The vibe I was going for is the song that ended up becoming the one I was referring to earlier, Tomato.
Okay.
I was going to write about this idea of like I keep on driving after seeing you, even though I want to go home, like I just can't settle down. I keep driving, but nothing was coming off the pen, and all of a sudden I'd been going through a rough period of life, and I'm always fighting with depression to some degree, which is probably very
Hmm.
common for artists. And I was hit by a wave of emotion, and I realized that I was really writing the song to God, and it was this idea of like having to um, keep driving, keep pushing forward, even though I would love to go home. Like it's not to be dark. It's not about being suicidal, but like sometimes you just get tired of living
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you want to go home. You want,
Yeah.
I want to go home to heaven is what I want. So
Yeah.
having this, as I wrote, the song just flowed and took shape because it was honest, it was real, and I hadn't had a talk with God in a while about this emotion, the specific tiredness emotion.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear the desperation. And one of the interesting things about this song is my songs thus far have been pretty heavily produced. There's a lot of sauce on them. This song is very spare, and um, it's very common practice, it's particularly in pop music, to take the best take of your chorus and then copy paste it across the song. So every chorus you're hearing that Justin Bieber sings is the same take, just
Yeah.
copy pasted. This is the first song I've ever done on the album where every take of the chorus is a different take.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, none of this is repetitious or repeated. It was there's little things that I'll be able to hear that are mistakes that no one else will notice. But I was arguing with my producer about it. I was like, I think we should copy paste. I'm really insecure about this. And he was like, I'm telling you, I feel very strongly we need to leave the vulnerability in here.
Yeah. Wow.
So
That's a
it's
great answer that like
oh
I
yeah.
like if they're telling you, hey, I think this will sound better if you're honest and authentic and vulnerable, instead of doing what everybody else is doing, like I would do it too. I would be like, all right, I get it.
Oh
Like
yeah. I mean he's good at knowing when to say nothing and when to say something, and that was helpful.
yeah.
And
Wow.
my quick shout out, my youngest brother, Nate, he was born on my birthday actually when I was 7, which is pretty wild.
Also,
But he also makes music. Nate Quatro Music is his Instagram. And he's very good at being vulnerable emotionally in his songs. He writes a lot of ballads, whereas I write a lot of pop. And he's been an inspiration as far as allowing myself to strip down from a production standpoint once in a while and not
hmm
overly produced. So, all right,
yeah.
I'll play this song. Hopefully, it comes through the speakers well. If not, you'll hear when it's released eventually.
Okay.
And here we go. Let's see if I can get this to work. Enter a room, take a breath, look around, exit stage left. I don't know if I made a difference. Weigh the past, present tense. See the world through a broken lens. I don't know if you could take this. But I'm up all night and wondering why I'm firefighting. You're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Crying and I'm trying just to realize that in my mind you're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Saw a chance, hard to break. Gave my heart and made mistakes. Battled demons and depression. Lady loves satin lace. Breaking up egg on my face. Never ever learned my lesson. Oh, I can't get up and face another day. Jesus, let me go to heaven. But I'm up all night and wondering why I'm firefighting. You're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Crying and I'm trying just to realize that in my mind you're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Praying that you'll hear me, don't give up on being near me. You know I don't have the strength to breathe alone. Tired of this mountain built of consequence and stone, but I'll just keep on climbing when I wanna go home. Enter a room, take a breath, look around, exit stage left. Guess I'll try to make a difference. But I'm up all night, wondering why I'm firefighting. You're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Crying and I'm trying just to realize it in my mind. You're the reason I keep on driving when I wanna go home. Keep on driving when I wanna go home.
Man,
There it is.
holy moly. That is a beautiful song.
Thank
Jesus.
you. I appreciate it, Kara. Thank you.
Gosh,
Jesus
those
was the inspiration.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a matter of like actually I have the lyrics here somewhere. My book's a little disorganized. But
Mine too.
Here it is. Yeah. This idea of like going through the same mistakes over and over and not learning my lesson.
Yeah.
That'll wear anybody out. You know what I mean? That'll make you tired and want to go home, you know? And then the line, I said, praying that you hear me, don't give up on being near me. I don't have the strength to breathe alone. I'm tired of this mountain built of consequence and stone, but I'll keep on climbing when I want to go home. And that's this idea of like most of the problems in our life we did to ourselves. We like to, people, and I'm not trying to, this is not about religion at all, but there's a very human experience of like, sometimes you look at and you say, why God, and most of the times you should look in the mirror and say, why to yourself, right? Because a lot of the issues we do to ourselves, and I've made the same mistakes countless times. And sometimes when I get tired and exhausted, I got to remember who was the author of the mistakes, me. And then there's really no answer in that song. There's no solution other than just begging to to go home, you know,
Yeah.
which there's a desperation that I think people can relate to. And right
Yeah.
now in my songs, I'm trying not to give solutions because my songs are not, um, they're not TED Talks, they're not sermons,
Yeah.
they're not, how-to videos. They're just feelings and emotions. And I was actually talking to my mom about songwriting, and she was like, "Man, I feel so sad when I hear some of your music or when I hear some of Nate's music, and I wonder, like, are they okay?" And I'm like, "You don't understand. Putting that down on paper helped.
Yeah.
It helped
That's
tremendously."
I when I put out my song that was under my name, it was so sad. People were like, "I had no idea you felt this way." Like this
Mhm.
is um it was something that I had actually felt for a really long time and had never really expressed. And it was the same thing. People were like, I really didn't know. Like
Mhm.
all I knew was like the happy parts, right?
Sure. That's all
So
you show people. Which, by the way, Kara, I'd love if you sent me that song. I'd love to, after the interview, I'd love to hear it.
sure, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
And so
But yeah, like it's there's honesty, and I grew up reading the classics, and I love Shakespeare and stuff, and I grew up reading the Bible, and the whole book of Psalms. It's a lot of sad songs.
yeah,
David's like, "I cried so much, my bed is literally floating in the tears," and it's
yeah,
which is a really poetic way to say I'm sad. But like there sometimes you have to, open your brain and spill it out onto a page, as cliche as that sounds. And the second song I ever released, "And I Found Another," which I've mentioned earlier in the interview about it being very petty, like I was so upset when I wrote that song and mad and feeling
oh
nasty.
yeah,
And when I was done writing the song, I felt better. Now I don't feel that way. I don't even like
yeah,
really feel that way towards
mhm,
that specific situation in life. It's
yeah.
over. Yeah.
Have you ever wrote a song that's the opposite of what happened?
Like an unreliable narrator.
No, like it's you, but like so I wrote a song called Spark, and I gave it to a band for them to do whatever they wanted to, but when I was younger. But so I wrote it it's in my perspective, but like
Mhm.
uh what actually happens in the story is the exact opposite of what happened in
That's a
the
great idea. I've never done that.
and so I was just curious with all of your experience. I was just wondering if you've done something like that too, where it's kind of the
What a
twist of
great idea. It's very playful, and it's that is interesting. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I've wanted to toy with the unreliable narrator idea where I tell a story completely wrong.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
funny, like there's a temptation, when doing stuff like this, interviews or talking to people to play a character. And I was interviewed by a small, like, online magazine recently, and in that interview, I did a little bit of a character, and I thought about it with you. I was like, I could say anything to this woman. I could tell her
Yeah.
my inspiration comes from cantaloupe,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is the perfect fruit. I love those round orange beauties. But anyways, I
Not
could
tomato, but
say
a
anything. I could play a character. I could be so. But I think the conversation just floats organically, and you're very
yeah,
good at what you do. So
thank you.
I think you got the. I didn't even have a chance to put a wall up. So good for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah.
try, and with the show in general, I try really hard to make it so that people are comfortable and that,
Hmm.
if they do want to, they're never going to come back if they don't. And also,
Hmm.
I make it organic and authentic because that's what I am when I'm with you guys on here, right? And I
Sure.
don't want to. I don't put on a persona like I'm coming in sick today. Like I
Hmm.
don't go like I don't go, oh, this is my makeup, this is how I dress, this is who I am. And I tried that in the beginning and it just was so hard. I couldn't do it. I was like,
It
this is
sounds
not
stressful, honestly.
it's
Yeah.
it is. It's massively stressful. And so I was
Mhm.
like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's where I started getting all the people going, no, I don't like your show, blah blah blah.
Right.
And I had a book that I would like go through. I had listened to hundreds of musical interviews of like the questions you ask, right? I had a
Mhm.
book, and you'll see in the beginning ones of me just like going through the book and turning pages because I was like, oh, I have to have the right, I have
Right.
to have everything. I don't want to do it wrong. And then eventually, in 2020, I just was like, fuck it. you know? And I
Well,
just,
yeah, I mean,
you
that was
know,
an era where everyone let the walls down, let the
yeah,
mask down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No
And
pun intended, I
yeah,
suppose. But
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely, you know, authenticity is refreshing, and
it is.
I'd say keep up the good work, Kara,
Thank
is what
you.
I would say.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it. You
yeah.
too. Don't quit
Thanks
your
very much.
friend.
What's that?
I said, don't quit your day job, friend.
Well, thanks. My day job is actually not music, but
I know.
I have heard that, and I'm like, it is funny. People have said that before as an insult, like, "Don't quit your day job," and I'm like,
Oh, I don't mean to.
but
Yeah.
no, no, I know, but I take it as a compliment because my day job's pretty cool too. Like, I'm an optician at the
Oh,
Veterans Outpatient Clinic, so I have a
yeah.
medical career. In addition,
What
the
the heck?
music I get to do because I have
Yeah.
it's I'm not a, thank goodness I'm not a starving musician. Like, I'm able to.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it is difficult. It is a struggle. It is a grind. I don't want to be like, I'm not out here with daddy's money. We did grow up poor, but it is nice to
Yeah. Me
have a
too.
day job that allows me to explore this side.
Yeah.
And I'd love to eventually quit the day job,
I mean, and
and
that's
get into
where,
music.
you know, I think a lot, that's the aspiration of a lot of local artists. Like, they don't want to be Beyonce, but they want to just be able, or John Mayer, but they want to be able to just play full time and do it full time. And
Yeah,
I've
do what they
seen,
love.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a ton of artists that I've had on my show that have been able to accomplish that. And it's taken them 5 years from the first time they started on my show to now, right?
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
taken them that long to get there. And
Right.
it's, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not something sugar coated, and you have to be determined. There is a grind to it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm lucky enough that I don't. For music, it's just a love. I love to make it, and I love to do it with my friends. And if they want to
Hmm.
take it and put it on their album, great. If I record it and put it on mine, great. Like, I'm just kind of fluid with it because it's not something that I want to do full time. If I could do this show full time, whole different story. And I never have
Sure.
been able to accomplish that. But it doesn't mean that I don't want to keep doing it, because I've been able to really navigate through being somebody that everybody goes to or trusts in this field, and somewhat of an expert at this point in it. And I've
Yeah.
done all over the world and then some. And so
Sure. It
it's
takes
like,
you places. Yeah.
it takes you, yeah. And so then you get to meet, person after person, and network after network. And I've been to red carpet events. I've been to
Hmm.
all these different things that these doors. I've been to Hawaii. Somebody took me to Hawaii. Like,
Well,
you
listen, fortune favors the bold, as they say.
exactly right. And so I think
Yeah.
in your sense, like, music is the same way. You
Hmm.
you you keep grinding, you keep doing it, and it also depends on where you want to go with it. Do you? And I'm saying this rhetorically, okay? Like,
Sure. Sure.
you want to be, you said you did, so that's why I'm saying rhetorically. But
Hmm.
in a broader sense, like, does the musician want to be full time? If you do, what does it take to get there? Well, talk to all the
Right.
other musicians that are doing it. Find out
Yeah.
what their secret sauce is, and if you need help, like, and you can't find somebody, talk to me. I know at least 10 off the top of my head that are doing it. Like, I can help you with that. But, like, if you
Okay.
want to do it organically, then figure it out. If you really want to do it, it's going to take time, but if you
Mhm.
really want to do it. But those of you that have, like you, where there's music and you're doing something else, which being in the medical field is hard enough as it is, like, Jesus. And then I no wonder you do music to, like, cope with that.
Well, it is a nice outlet, and it is a nice, it's when you get, you know, when you do a daily grind of any job at all,
Yeah, it's true.
like, you need some reason to, um, you need something besides it. You really do,
Yes.
and
You
it's
do.
like, if I'm feeling depressed, it's like I need to do something, and
Yeah.
it's something that I enjoy, and something that isn't structured, and not something that I have to do. So
Yeah.
music's a great outlet to be like, this is something you can create and express. It's something to look forward to, which is fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
And again, I'm really excited about this album. It's I don't say this to be vain, care, but it is very good. The music is
Yeah.
very good. The songwriting is good.
Yeah.
There's it was really refreshing to learn, and I guess I'll close with the admonishment to the audience, but the it's so exciting to learn what you're good at, and you can't learn without trying a bunch of stuff. So let's say you put all your effort into something that doesn't end up being the thing you end up doing.
Yeah.
The person you became, so just put 100% effort into something. The person you become, putting effort into that thing, that person is transferable to a lot of different things. So
Hun.
if you start an endeavor and you put 100% of yourself, you start again. If you start an endeavor and you put 100% of yourself into that endeavor and that endeavor doesn't work out, that person can plug that 100% anywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't really know what part of music I was good at. I just was doing a lot of cover stuff and realizing my voice is nowhere near as good as the original person. Why? And then when I started writing my own stuff, I was like, oh, my voice is good. I just need my own
Yeah.
songs. And then realizing that, like, I came to the realization this year, it was really eye-opening and it's almost scary to admit because you don't want to jinx it. But I realized, like, I'm good at writing songs,
Yeah.
like actually good
Some
at it.
people just are. Some people are just fantastic and can just do it on a fly. And
And
it's
even if
just,
it's on the fly or if it's not easy, like when I'm
yeah.
done, I'm like, these are good melodies, they're hooks, they
Yeah.
get stuck in people's head, the lyrics have some meaning, and that's exciting. I would have never learned that without trying. Now, I may learn a million things I'm bad at, but it was worth it to get that information. So to
Yeah.
anyone watching this, it doesn't have to be art. It could be
Yeah.
literally any hobby or any passion, anything that you pursue. Maybe it's like a new job you're trying to get and you're like going through the interview process. You're not even sure if you're right for this. Like, just, it's okay to suck at something. It's
Yeah.
okay to fail at something, and you'll grow just from trying hard at it.
Yeah.
And you'll learn some new stuff about yourself
Yeah.
because, yeah, we don't
There's no
really know
there's,
ourselves that well.
yeah, and there's no way not to grow from it because you're expanding your knowledge, you're gaining a new perspective, and you're giving yourself a challenge that you wouldn't have beforehand.
Right.
And it's giving you that, like, that, yeah, that knowledge, that experience of being able to be on the other side of whether you wanted to or not,
Sure.
or whether it
Hey,
was
it beats
worth
doing nothing.
it. Yeah, and it beats doing. You can't get at the end of it and be like, well, I should have tried that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I didn't really like doing that in the end, like,
Well,
and
yeah, listen, I've done things and thought, well, let's not do that anymore. But it
yeah,
still was
yeah,
like,
me too.
it still beat sitting on the couch. So,
It does, yeah, and
you know,
wishing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
well, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but like sometimes I won't start something because I'm afraid I can't do it well. And then years will go
Yeah.
by and then I'll say, well, I should have started it back then. It's too
Oh my.
late now. And
Yeah.
then years go by and you're like, if I had started it at the first time,
20
I
years
question myself.
ago. Yeah.
So, like, eventually, like, I had this dream and
Oh
stuff,
my god.
in my teens and even preteens. And then I hit my 20s and thought I should have done it in my teens. And
Yeah.
now I'm in my late 20s and I'm thinking, gee, I'm so late to this. But then I'm like, well, I better get cooking because,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to hit my late 30s and think, man, why didn't I? So
Bro. Oh, that is so
just do
cool.
it.
Yeah.
Just to steal from Nike,
Yeah.
just do it. And listen, if people make fun of you or if you fail, like, people also forget stuff. So just
That, yeah.
like this,
Huh.
I realize, like, when I get like mean comments or whatever on social media, I'm like, that person forgot about me the second they scrolled away. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
that important.
That's so
So I'm
true.
if
Yeah.
I think about their comment longer than they did, like, that's a
Yeah.
me problem.
Yeah.
So
And what's funny is I on that note of the, like, just do it and I wish I would have done it, like, the guitar, I played it all the way up until I was like 20. I got
mhm.
trained by a really, like, the guitarist, one of the guitarists for Santana, like, he is
Wow.
fantastic, right?
Wonderful.
And so I was playing it all the way until I was like 2021, and then life kind of went left and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna give this up for a minute, and then I gave it up until my mid, like, I was 21, I gave it up until my mid 30s,
Mhm.
and because I was like, I'm just not good enough, and everybody's been
Yeah.
playing for 20 years, and exactly what you were saying, I was like, man, I should have just stuck with it, but I was also terrified, and that came from a what I realized in therapy. Therapy's great, people, is that you know I had come from a childhood fear of playing, and so and failing. And so I
Sure.
was, man, like, you know, and I was actually, so I did the flute and then I went to drums, and I bought myself a
Oh,
drum
wow.
set when I was 17. And that was like,
Oh, but your parents love that.
unstable internet connection. Oh,
There
no.
we go. No, you're back. You're back.
No, don't do it.
I can hear you well now. The last
We're
thing you were
just
saying was,
about to end too, guys. I'm so sorry.
am I back or no?
Okay, I'm gonna wait a little bit and see if he comes back.
Okay. Are we back now? I can see and hear you. Let's see. Yeah, it's been.
Okay. Sorry, it kicked us out. I really appreciate everybody that stuck around and is here. And oh, he came back. Woohoo! Yay!
Sorry, when you were telling the drum story, the internet connection went.
Yeah, it
on the
cut
fritz.
out. The whole thing went out. So I think mine had a. I live in the middle of nowhere of 150 people, and our internet sometimes just goes, "See ya." So,
I could hear you. I could hear you for a part of it, like calling my name.
Yeah.
Was funny.
Yeah. I was like, no, don't go.
But yeah, just
you'll
it's a
see
good.
that in the replay.
Yeah, it's just a good reminder for people to just keep going and keep
Yeah.
trying new things, and don't lose that sense of play and adventure. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
again, these are all this is all nothing new. Like these are cliches, but it's good to be reminded of.
But it's
sure.
but it's truth, and what I was trying to say with the drums was that, like, that's where I started, and that's where I got really good. And so that's kind of why I stopped the guitar, because I was like, oh, I'm better at this than I am at that, and I don't need to play it, right?
Yeah.
And so I played in a Christian band and played in a punk band and like all these other things. And then and by the time I was 21, I gave it all up. But also, like, it also becomes, you can either use that instrument and get better at it and keep doing it through all of life's things and let that be what heals you and let that be what gets you through it all. Or, if it can't, and that's just at the time not something you can do, like for me at the time I couldn't, then that's okay too. Like, you don't have to be so hard on yourself, but you can. That's the beauty of life, is you can just start things whenever the hell you want, because it's
Right.
that's just what it is. Like, you don't have to wait for anybody or anything. And once you get out of it's mostly all in your head. So once you get out of your own head, then it becomes much better and a lot more fun, and you
For sure
learn to love it again.
Yes, that's the thing, is finding something that you love, and not like finding the joy again, maybe something that you put down.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
believe me, it's easy to hear people that there's always someone better at what you're trying to do. And it's so easy to hear them. And like Saturday, I went into the studio and there was a guy in a session finishing up. And I'm waiting in the outer room to go in, and I just hear this beautiful voice singing this beautiful song. And I remember standing there and I just thought, you know what? When that guy comes out, I think I'll punch him in the throat. And the thing is, I say that tongue in cheek because he was so amazing that it was like hard for me not to be like, son of a gun, he's so good. Like, I wish I could do that. But then the thing is, blowing out someone else's candle does not actually make your light burn brighter. It only makes it appear lighter. I always try and spread, put other people on, bring other people with me if I'm having some success, and, hopefully connect with people that will do the same. Like, it's a communal, music's a community, and that's important.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And it's as MLB, and you all know who they are, will say, you got to spread the love, and that's all you do, is just spread the love, and eventually it comes back twofold or tenfold.
So I think it's time to get some fluids and get hydrated and get some NyQuil or something.
We decided right before this, we're gonna be completely transparent. I was like, I'm only doing 30 minutes, y'all. Like, that's it. And then now we're at an hour and 30 minutes. So yeah, I think it's time for me to go get some fluids.
Yes, good for you.
And go lay down and rest. But I really do appreciate, this was such an awesome conversation, and I appreciate you sharing an unreleased song that a lot of people don't do that. And also just coming on and really having an honest conversation and like being vulnerable.
What fun. Thank you for having me and for facilitating it. I guess my plugs, if anyone listening, my Instagram is Jonny Quatro Music. There's no H in the Jonny, Jonny. Quatro is Quatro, and music is, no, I'm kidding. So Jonny Quatro Music is Instagram.
It's not with a Z.
Quatro, yes, Jonny.Quatro on TikTok, Jonny Quatro on Snapchat, Jonny Quatro on Facebook. Really, the best thing you can do for any artist is go to their Spotify or their Apple Music and download and then add to a playlist. All the algorithm understands is playlists. So the more playlists they see that thing on, it doesn't cost you any extra to click a button, and that really makes the artist's music pop off. So my latest single is out now. It's called Love Me Just a Little Bit, and it is a beautiful song. And again, if we have a conversation another time, we'll go over that. But follow my music journey, guys. It's good stuff. It's going to get bigger, and you're going to be so glad you got in the beginning and got to follow step by step. So one new single a month, and a brand spanking new album at the end of the year.
Yeah, so excited. Yay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Those of you that stuck around all the way through the whole thing live, like, you guys are amazing. And even through the technical difficulties. So we appreciate you so much. And those of you that are on the replay, we appreciate you coming back to watch. And please tell your friends. Remember to subscribe and, click the bell, because we'll be live every Tuesday and every video every Tuesday. And if you can't make it, it'll tell you when there is one. So just look out for that. As always, love your people, stay connected, and help out the artists and support them as much as you can. That's why we bring them on here. And why I've been doing it for so long is for all of you to share these guys and to, support them as much as you can. So thank you very much to Jonny again. Thank you, everybody else, and we'll have a good night. Bye.
Take care.